victory in China itself.
What can a song do? Can it create space within an authoritative atmosphere? Can it remind a generation that it is alive? In Taiwan during the 1970s, the answer was yes. Not with slogans, not with marching bands, but with guitars, fragile voices, and melodies passed from dorm room to dorm room. These were campus folk songs, simple, sentimental, almost naive. Yet they broke open something larger. They gave Taiwan's young people a language of their own, at a time when speech itself was watched and controlled. And they didn't fade away. The echoes of those songs can still be heard in mandopop ballads, indie festivals, and even in classrooms today. This is the story of how campus folk changed Taiwan's music and why it still matters. To understand why students picked up guitars, you have to understand the silence they were born into. From 1949 until 1987, Taiwan lived under martial law, the longest continuous stretch of martial law in modern history. The Kuomintang government tightly controlled every form of public expression. Newspapers were censored, books were banned, even everyday conversation was careful. The education system drilled students in nationalism. The approved music, the only music broadcast or taught in schools, celebrated discipline, loyalty, and productivity. Patriot anthems filled the air, but not the heart. And dialects themselves were suppressed. Taiwanese Hokkien, Hakka, and indigenous languages were pushed out of schools and media. Mandarin was enforced as the sole public tongue. Yet Taiwan in the 1970s was not frozen. The island was industrializing quickly. Universities were swelling with students. The children of farmers, shopkeepers, and clerks who were the first in their family to gain higher education. They were literate, curious, and restless. They knew there was more to life than the slogans painted on school walls. And into that silence, the guitar arrived. It was cheap, portable. You didn't need an orchestra or a state license. You just needed 3 chords, and you could make music. Imported records, bootleg chord sheets, and cassettes circulated on campus. Students listened to Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, Peter, Paul and Mary, and even the Beatles. Songs of protest, longing, and ordinary life. Then in stairwells and dorms, they began writing their own. Not about the party, not about grand slogans, but about waves, bays, and the ache of missing someone. One student later said, "We sang because those were our songs, not the government's." Yang Xian wrote songs rooted in rivers and seasons, pastoral on the surface, but carrying the yearning of a generation.
你不认得我，我不认得他，他不认得你，谁也不认得谁。
Chi Yu, with a crystalline voice, turned intimacy into defiance.
不要问我从哪里来，我的故乡在远方。
Li Jianfu's warm folk melodies were distinctly Taiwanese and often unified audiences in chorus.
遥远的东方有一条江，它的名字就叫长江。
None of them began as professionals. They were students strumming off-key, but their vulnerability was itself revolutionary. Campus folk wasn't about celebrity. It was about community. Guitars passed around, voices cracked, gatherings spilling past curfews. But on December 3rd, 1976, at Tamkang University, Li Shuangze changed everything. On stage at a concert of Western folk songs, he held up a Coca-Cola bottle, asked why students sang only in English, and smashed it on the floor. Coke symbolized Western influence. The shattering glass jolted the crowd. Lee followed with Taiwanese folk songs like Mending the Fishing Net. The Coca-Cola incident ignited a call: sing our own songs. A few years later, Li Zhuangzi died tragically when he drowned trying to save a foreigner in the water. Yet his legacy as an artist and as an activist remains, as people still honor him today. Some songs became canon. Grandma's Penghu Bay by Pan Ang Bang captured childhood summers in Penghu, nostalgic yet yearning for freedom.
直到夜色吞没我俩在回家的路上，澎湖湾，澎湖湾，外婆的澎湖湾。
Yin Xiao, the snail, and the oriole used a simple allegory, a snail climbing as an oriole watches, to speak of perseverance and inequality.
阿门阿前一棵葡萄树，阿嫩阿嫩绿的刚发芽，蜗牛背着那重重的壳呀，一步一步地往上爬。
They weren't loud protests, but gentleness carried its own defiance.
哈哈在笑他。
By the late 1970s, campus folk was impossible to ignore. Concerts drew thousands, cafes filled, homemade recordings circulated. Authorities grew wary, but the songs had plausible deniability. They spoke of bays and rivers and nature, not revolutions, and that was enough cover to spread. Tao Xiaoqing, the mother of Taiwanese folk songs, used a radio platform to amplify young voices. Chen Mingchang sharpened folk with stronger songwriting. Bao Deming added quiet intensity.
悄悄声中修了的心，轻轻地唱你的相思调。
Each made the music broader, deeper, and harder to dismiss. By the early 80s, record companies saw an audience. Folk sincerity entered studios. Chiyu bridged the gap, her voice carrying campus intimacy into polished Mando pop.
用它来种什么？用它来种什么？种桃种李种春风。用它来种什么？用它来种什么？
Some said commercialization diluted the spirit. Others said it preserved it, giving folk DNA a future. From the folk ethos emerged Lu Diao. His 1980s song blended intimacy with sharp critique. Tomorrow Will Be Better became both anthem and demand for change. Folk's sincerity had evolved into a soundtrack for Taiwan's democratic awakening. Campus folk's legacy is twofold: nostalgia and continuity. Songs like Penghu Bay are still sung at school events, memorial concerts, and in karaoke halls. Indie bands like Cheer Chen and Sorry Youth echo its fingerprints with storytelling and acoustic intimacy. Young people may stream K-pop, but when they pick up guitars to sing about longing or home, they trace a line back to sterile harmonies of the 1970s. A Coke bottle shattered on stage, a snail climbing under the oriole's gaze, a memory of Penghu waves. Fragile images that carried a generation. Campus folk mattered because it gave students an identity. It gave students music that was theirs. Today it survives not as rebellion, but as memory and identity. And it's proof that even under silence, people will find a way to sing their own songs.